Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. And whomever you love, we welcome you. This is our virtual broadcast here at First Unitarian Church of Toledo. Thank you for joining us on YouTube, and we hope to see you again either online or next on the 21st in person, I will clarify. Couple welcome and announcements. Our last day to order poinsettias is this Monday, November 8th. Order forms can be left in the outside mailbox next to the church's front doors. On November 21st, the plan is to have our 11 a.m. service here in the sanctuary open to you and all the public. Next week's service is on YouTube only. Now that the COVID-19 vaccine is available to all age 5 and up, with coronavirus cases numbers lowering, our board, with the advice of our COVID task force, decided this was a safe enough time to resume indoor services. We realize that all aren't of the same thought, so we'll continue online services on this YouTube Toledo Unitarians channel. We begin our service with these opening words. The Heart of Our Faith by Monica Jacobson Tennyson. What is it that calls you here, that calls you onward, that calls you inward, that leads you homeward? What is it that gives you the power to make that change, to ask that question, or to take that journey? What is it that says you have done well, that asks you to learn more, that brings you to stillness, and that holds you up in hard times? It is relationship, the beating heart of our faith. It begins when we share this hour, our truths, this air, our hearts. Come, let us worship together.
Our chalice lighting has words from Rumi. No mirror ever became glass again. No bread ever became wheat. No ripened grape ever became sour fruit. Mature yourself and be secure from a change for the worse. Become the light. And now please join me in reciting the covenant of this congregation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Now, our Life of Wonder quotation this week was said by the British comedian Stephen Fry. Oscar Wilde said that if you know what you want to be, then you inevitably become it. That is your punishment. But if you never know, then you can be anything. There is a truth to that. We are not nouns, we are verbs. I am not a thing, an actor, a writer. I am a person who does things. I write, I act, and I never know what I am going to do next. I think you can be imprisoned if you think of yourself as a noun. Now, our opening hymn today is number 114, Forward Through the Ages.
Move the faithful spirit.
This morning's story is A Day at the Lawn, written by Eric Walker Wickstrom. Once upon a time, there was a girl named Wendy. She loved grass. What can I say? She loved grass. She loved the feel of it between her toes. She loved the smell of it when it was freshly mown. She loved its bright green color. Wendy loved grass more than just about anything. One day her family decided to go to the beach. Wendy wasn't too sure about it. "Come on," said her older brother, "we can go swimming. And we can collect rocks and shells together," said her mom. "And you can bury me in the sand," said her dad. It sounded like fun, so they all piled into the car and off they went. When they got to the beach, it sure looked great, like nothing Wendy had ever seen. But when she first touched the sand, it was way, way, way too hot. "This isn't cool like grass," she said. "I wish this sand was grass," she cried. Now, Wendy had a good luck fairy who followed her around, and he heard her wish and decided to grant it. With a flash, all of the sand turned into grass. Now it was her family's turn to be not too sure. Wendy, of course, was delighted. "I guess I won't get buried today," said Dad. "That's okay," said Mom. "Let's collect some shells." Everyone went down to where the water lapped the edge of the grass. There were polished rocks and beautiful shells lying all about. They all set to work looking for the shiniest or the biggest or the most colorful. Everyone except Wendy. "Ouch," she said. "Oh, cheech." The rocks and shells hurt her feet. "I wish these rocks were soft like grass," she thought to herself. And as soon as she did, her good luck fairy, who could hear her thoughts as well as her words, made it so. The rocks and shells turned to grass too. The family looked at one another. "Well," they said, "at least they're swimming." Everybody laid their beach towels on the grass and changed into their bathing suits. "Last one in is a rotten egg," Wendy's older brother cried. And he ran into the waves, followed closely by Wendy's sister, their delighted squeals trailing behind. Wendy followed tentatively, but when her toe touched the water, she said, "Yuck, too wet and cold." This time she didn't even have to think it. The fairy changed the water into grass without her even having to ask for it. Everyone turned to her and said, "Wendy!" But what was she to do? But her family was very understanding. They were, after all, Unitarian Universalists. So they decided to try to make the best of it. "Let's have lunch," said Mom and Dad. So they got out their picnic basket, found a nice spot on the now wide lawn, spread out the checkered cloth, and they all set to it. Wendy was in heaven. After all, didn't she love grass more than just about anything? But she had to admit she was beginning to feel a bit bored, and something just didn't feel right. After all, everywhere she looked, there was nothing but grass. And all of the sounds of the beach, the waves, the seagulls, all of it, they'd gone too. Grass was nice, but maybe not so much when that's all that there was. "Well," said her mom, "we went to the beach and we're at a lawn. This isn't the way it's supposed to be." "What do you mean?" Wendy asked. Her dad said, "You made it all the same. The sand, the rocks, the water. Each was different, and you made them the same because their differences made you uncomfortable. But those differences also made them special and beautiful, and without them, there's a whole lot missing. In fact, everything that makes this place what it is missing. And that means that you are missing out on everything you really came here for." Wendy thought about this for a while. She did want to collect rocks and shells. She'd seen some really beautiful ones. And the water was cold, but her brother and sister looked like they were having a lot of fun too. And the idea of burying her father in sand was too good to pass up. I wish it was all back the way it was, she thought, and the good luck fairy made her wish come true. Wendy and her family had the best time that day. She still loves grass more than just about anything, but she's learned to love other things too. And she's come across some things that she doesn't like much, and that's okay too. But she never ever wanted everything to be the same again. Because she knows that things are supposed to be different, each thing as it is, and that exploring new things makes life so much more fun.
Our centering music today has words by St. Teresa of Avila. Nada te turbe, nada te espante, todo se pasa, Dios no se muda. La paciencia todo alcanza, quien a Dios tiene, nada le falta, solo Dios basta. Let nothing disturb you, nothing frighten you. All things are passing, God never changes. Patience obtains all things. Whoever has God lacks nothing. God is enough.
For meditation, contemplation, and prayer. This is The Heart of Both And, written by Lynn Cox. Spirit of life, ever adapting and renewing, we come together this morning with yearnings that do not match. We yearn for stability, for even one moment of feeling like we know what is going on, for the ability to predict and prepare for what is coming next. Yet we also yearn for change. We ache for a world that turns aside from racism, violence, dehumanization, and disregard for suffering. We pray for a change in the illness, grief, isolation, incarceration, and vulnerability of our loved ones. We reach for connections that will remind us that we are worthy as we are. And we reach for connections that will help us to become our best selves. Hold us in the heart of both and. Cradle us in the mystery. Cherish us in the eternal presence of love, and encourage us on the path of growth and development. As individuals and as a people, help us to become who we are called to be. Lead us to open pathways to deeper wisdom through reconciliation, self-respect, and mutual respect, compassion, owning and making amends for our mistakes. Source of wonder, move us to express and live in gratitude for the beauty of this world, the loving people in our lives, and this day of possibility. To this we add the meditations of our hearts as we enter into a minute of silence.
Spirit of life, come to me, sing in my heart all the strength of compassion. Rise in the sea, moving the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Rose holy rose, wings set free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Being human means we are of this earth, by Sweet Home Teacup. May we recognize and abandon the familiar attitudes and practices that do not serve the whole. We are who we are, and we have the opportunity to be who we want to be, to create a new inheritance for the future. May our thoughts, words, and actions in our daily lives assist in dismantling paradigms of oppression and suffering. May we give thanks for our individual place in time and space, to our families and our relationships that touch and change us. May we give thanks to the wise teachers who help us remember how to be, and the chance to make it so. Underneath and within these stories and histories is our humanity. Being human means we are of this earth. We are these waters. We are fire and atmosphere. We are the sun and the moon and the stars. We are all that we see, and the wisdom is revealed by looking in between.
To you who tuned in at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, welcome. If you tried to connect an hour ago, I hope your time waiting was well spent, whether that meant relaxing with coffee, going to Zoom for our Spiritual Adventures Forum, going back to bed for that supposed bonus hour of the time change, or doing something productive around your house or apartment. And if you're watching on YouTube at a later time, thanks for clicking, and I hope this service serves your spirit. Today, I'm talking about change beyond the time change. As we begin to emerge from the pandemic, more likely it seems into a world in which COVID-19 is a continuing coronavirus rather than being eradicated by science, medicine, and vaccines that are already available. It's my opinion that we will have to change if we're going to continue to thrive. At First Unitarian and in the world, which gets us especially to climate change, doesn't it? Don't be frightened about that, except for climate betterment because we've delayed so long and ignored warnings. It isn't radical change here, I don't think, but just being more attentive to the health and welfare of what is dear to us. Not just people, but even organizations like First Unitarian Church of Toledo. I have some ideas, and if you do too, I'd like to hear them. In 2 weeks, on November 21st, after 82 online-only Sundays, plus 6 outdoor services, that's about 2/3 into a second year. We're planning to return to Sunday in person in the sanctuary services. You're welcome to be here. And I hope we'll see many pews in use. Please bring your mask and sit with appropriate social distancing. And don't sing, but if you want to hum behind your mask, that might be all right. If you don't feel ready to come back yet, that's okay. We understand. And we're planning to continue our live streaming on the Toledo Unitarians YouTube channel through at least the end of the calendar year. Depending on volunteer availability, as our tech crew is small and we need more volunteers. So if you'd like to take part, let me know. And depending on our challenges with technology, as many of you know, we've been working through continually. We could continue the full service or revise the way we present on YouTube in 2022. When you're ready to come back, we welcome your presence. And if you can be here on November 21st, please come back to church. Let me tell you a little bit of what I envision as we come back together in person. First up is the holiday season, and before we start giving special attention to congregational rebonding, let's enjoy the holidays. We'll have our traditional all-music service, which I think will be pre-recorded, but you'll be able to watch it here. I'm trying to arrange something special for our December religious education service, but that isn't yet confirmed. And we'll have the Sunday before Christmas and a Christmas Eve service too. And for another special service, the plan for the Beverly Cluster Thanksgiving service is for it to be pre-recorded, given by Pastor Ed Heilman of Park Church and me, and to launch on our YouTube channel, and I think Park Church's too, the Sunday before Thanksgiving, the 21st at 5 p.m. Melissa Jeter, our student minister, will preach the final Sunday of the year. Soon after the holidays, but I doubt as soon as the first week of January, we'll start a small group ministry program and try to involve all the congregation in it. Think of it kind of like chalice circles, but with a few differences. And we'd really like to have everyone take part. We need to get reacquainted, and that's one way to do so. Many Unitarian Universalist congregations are seriously into small group ministry, and we've done so in a more light manner, I think. So let's be intentional about doing church differently. We're still designing the program, but it will be ready when we meet. Another aspect is to bring people. Ask your friends and neighbors to come to Sunday services with you, or on their own, to this place that you hold dear. I know that it can be hard to out yourself in some places as a religious person, perhaps especially as a Unitarian Universalist, because many don't understand our inclusive approach of liberal religion, and you don't want it to be you evangelizing. But there are so many people who might be you if only they were exposed to it, and your bringing them here could mean more members. We're not in a region of the country where one of the first questions asked of people newly met is, where do you go to church? And it might be more surprising to others when some of us say we are churchgoers. So do your best to shake the paradigm, change perceptions, and in the process, maybe build this congregation. It looks to me like I'm kind of putting the cart before the horse in today's talk. Rather than easing into how I'd like to see some change for the Toledo Unitarians, by first giving words about change more generally, I put us at the beginning, and now am shifting to some outside voices. My hope is that you too want the change. And now that you have an idea or a little different notion of what might result, and you can contribute to that being part of the change, some of this might inspire you. Lyle Schiller wrote what's become a classic in the church change area, The Change Agent, 50 years ago. He detailed several types of change: modernization, transformation, and survival adaptation. For us, taking what we've perceived isn't working well for bringing new members, for example, and changing our approach would be a mixture, I think, of a little bit of transformation and more survival adaptation. We'll also be modernizing some, as seen by our being on YouTube, and I hope after an upcoming capital campaign that would raise funds for renovation of the sanctuary and more availability, more accessibility throughout our building. Lyle Schiller also gives an even simpler typology, he wrote. In one category are those changes I favor. In the second are those I oppose. The use of these categories to define types of change not only helps us to explain what is meant when the word change is used, he wrote, but also is a useful first step in examining the nature of change, revealing motivations, and understanding the reasons behind the varying reactions to change. Schiller also gives categories of change suggested by Thomas R. Bennett. The types of change are in structure, technology, behavior, and assumptions and values. What I see is that all of those elements come into play with change. It's not possible to stick to one category, so be aware of the whole and probably adjust as you go. Consider two of the ongoing statements on church growth that come from many congregants, not just from our church, but from many in a lot of denominations. We need more young people. We need more families. Yes, we do. But there's no magic way to attract. It would help, though, if we can reestablish a good religious education program with a strong professional director. But at the moment, that would happen only with a very good pledge drive that would surpass our minimum goal. And please get your pledge forms to the office if you haven't already. Statistics show that church attendance is declining. I'm finding that with younger people, the notion of membership is a bit different, and being here and signing the book aren't necessary to be allied with us, even though that would help our ways of church composition. And there's still general misunderstanding of what Unitarian Universalism is, and I hope I do at least a small part of showing that we're a world religions respecting place for people of faith and even of no beliefs, that we come together knowing that we don't all have the same spiritual path, but it's a joy to travel together when our paths meet and to support one another in our seeking and sometimes finding, and sharing stories along this journey. And in showing that we're attentive to this world that we know, and change must come here, not in an afterlife, if there even is one. With that, I hope people want to be a part of this congregation, and their being here contributes to natural change. Getting to that from we need more young people is why we need to do other things too to attract new folks. Sharing meals, being social, providing some liberal religious-oriented education, and living our values in the world not just individually, but as a congregation, which means supporting social justice in all its dimensions, including that Black Lives Matter, a woman has choice over her own body, and that includes abortion rights, and that two consenting adults who love each other can legally be married. We're in the world, not separating from it, focused a bit more on humans here than on notions of deity beyond. We can also show our love for the arts, I'll add, and we can play as well as, and sometimes at the same time as, doing the hard work of changing the world by building the beloved community. In his book, Managing Transition, Making the Most of Change, William Bridges wrote, "It's not the changes that do you in, it's the transitions. They aren't the same thing. Change is situational. The move to a new site, like we did 13 years ago. The retirement of the founder, the reorganization of the roles on the team, the revisions to the pension plan. Transition, on the other hand, is psychological. It is a three-phase process that people go through as they internalize and come to terms with the details of the new situation that the change brings about. Yes, I'm trying to get you into transition thinking today because I'm speaking about not just change in general, but needed change here. So we need to wrap our heads around this as we come back together and work not just at reunion, but for rebuilding. I really see that, and I ask you to be, using Lyle Shaller's book title, Change Agents. Back to William Bridges. He continues, even though you probably won't find it in the change document, transition isn't some optional if you get around to it add-on to the change. It's not icing on the cake that can be forgotten until things ease up and you've finished with the important stuff. Getting people through the transition is essential if the change is actually to work as planned. When a change happens without people going through a transition, it is just a rearrangement of the chairs. It's what people mean when they say, just because everything has changed, don't think that anything is different around here. It's what has gone wrong when some highly touted change ends up costing a lot of money and producing disappointing results. But as important as going through transition is to getting the results that organizations are seeking, they lack a language for talking about it. Though I want to get movable chairs into a renovated sanctuary, the change in our church that I ask you to be part of isn't just, as Bridges put it, a rearrangement of the chairs. No, we need to have change to be the welcoming congregation we proclaim, to continue to bring members in and make our mark well beyond Glendale Avenue in Toledo. It's not an easy thing, and I know it can make all of us uncomfortable. William Bridges also wrote, I have learned how self-defeating it is to try to overcome people's resistance to change without addressing the threat that change poses to their world. And these changes cannot be delayed until everyone feels comfortable with them. An organization must be able to take changes from an initial idea to a full-scale implementation without all those little delays that used to give people time to adjust themselves and settle gradually into the new way of doing things. Change is the name of the game today. And organizations that can't change quickly aren't going to be around for long. People have to think for themselves, function effectively without close supervision, be creative, and go the extra mile for the new person. People have to bring their hearts and their minds to work. The way change was managed in the past was designed for a time when it was sufficient to get warm bodies on the production line. You know that First Unitarian Church of Toledo is not an assembly line church. There is no longer the societal expectation that people go to church. So it's more a church or no church. Am I a religious person even though I don't believe what those mainstream and mega churches preach? Or how can I live my own religion when others who have different views expect of coming into Unitarian Universalism and finding this is a church home? We don't need just bodies to fill our roles. We want a membership of people living our liberal religion with all of its morals and values. Help me make some changes for that to happen well. Change, in my experience, it's not something we like, especially if it's imposed on us. And in a group setting, there's always going to be some imposing alongside your own notions of how change could come. It might be a bit better if it's our own idea, done at our own volition, but still there are times we'll wonder why we decided to do it. But then once the change begins to show good results, we might appreciate it and say it was a good idea. As you change your clocks, think about the changes you'll be part of in your church. And know there will be a difference. Our saving time isn't just a part of the year toggle from the standard. And our saving time isn't the soul converting concept of mainstream and megachurch. No, we must work with transition and change to keep this beacon of liberal religion shining into the world. And you and I are the agents to make the change. And to save the world, maybe? So be it.
We come now to our time of offering, and we thank you for being a part of our church home. If you have already and are able, we thank you for submitting your pledge form. If you have it, you can send it over to the church office at 3205 Glendale here in Toledo. You can also go online. If you click on the YouTube description box, there is a link to uutoledo.org. There you can give online. You can also download information about our stewardship campaign. We only have a couple weeks left, so get those pledge forms in. We are so grateful for everyone who contributes to our Toledo Unitarian community.
Now, coming soon, next week at 9:45 a.m. on Zoom, we have our Spiritual Adventures Forum. Then at 11 on this YouTube channel only is our Sunday service. And next week, Commissioned Lay Minister David Strickler will be speaking on, I think I'm an agnostic, but I'm not sure.
That's a great title. And immediately after today's service, we invite you to join us for our virtual coffee hour on Zoom. That meeting code and passcode are in the YouTube description box. We hope to see you there. I have these closing words, In Honor, by Amanda Schuber. In honor of the risk takers, those that hold the vision with clarity and charge forward with optimism even in the face of others' doubts. You are our lamplighters and our guides. May we never forget the courage it takes to lead the way forward. In honor of the cautious skeptics, those that gather the information needed to navigate the tumultuous waters of change. You are the map makers and the preparers of the stores. May we appreciate your attention to the detail that keeps us on course. In honor of the doubters, those that may fear the changing tides of a turbulent world. You are our anchors, and remind us of where we have been and where we are as a community now. May we relish your commitment to our history and your passion for who we have become. In honor of the dreamers, those that imagine what we can be to and in this world. You are the wind that blows the sails of change, pushing us ever forward. May we revel always in your whimsy and hope that dares us to never stop becoming. May the work we do together strengthen our community and our world. May we heed the call to always hold the vision of the free church ever in our sight and to work towards justice. Together, we wield a powerful spirit that is strengthened by the gifts of all.
And today we send the flame from our chalice into the community with the hope that it helps us to ignite change, and that the change we seek within our congregation and in the world will build beloved community.